The barbed wire cut deeper with every breath she took. Maribel Kinsley didn't scream. Not when they dragged her through the snow. Not when they bound her wrists to the fence post. Not when her husband spat in her face and called her womb cursed. She had screamed enough during the birth 3 daughters in 6 hours, and Joseph had made it clear what that meant. Girls were failure. 3 girls were damnation. Now the wire bit into frozen flesh, and her newborns lay silent in the snow at her feet. She'd stopped praying an hour ago. But someone was coming. Before we continue, if you believe second chances are real, if you believe one person can change everything, subscribe to this channel. Stay with us until the end, and comment your city below so we can see how far this story travels. Now, let's begin. Wyoming Territory, February 1878. The wind carried sound strangely in the Bitterroots. Sometimes it swallowed gunshots whole. Sometimes it carried a whisper 5 miles. That morning, it carried crying. Elijah Stone heard it before he saw anything thin. Desperate wails threading through the pines like something dying slow. He reined his horse to a stop and listened. Not animal, human, infant. His jaw tightened. He'd ridden this trail 100 times, always alone, always glad for it. The town below tolerated him because he stayed gone. Tolerated his scarred face and dead quiet manner because he never asked for anything, never caused trouble, never looked anyone in the eye long enough to make them uncomfortable. But that sound made something old and buried stir in his chest. He urged the horse forward. The clearing appeared through the trees like a wound raw and wrong. A fence post stood in the center, leaning slightly half-rotted. A woman was tied to it. Elijah dismounted before the horse fully stopped. She hung forward against the wire-head-down dark hair matted with ice. Her dress was torn, soaked through, frozen stiff in places. Blood streaked her arms where the barbed wire had cut deep. At her feet, 3 bundles lay in the snow. Babies. His boots crunched across the clearing. The woman didn't move. Didn't look up. "Ma'am?" Nothing. He crouched in front of her, blocking the wind with his body. Her face was gray-white, lips blue. Frost clung to her eyelashes. But her chest rose and fell, shallow, slow. Alive. He turned his attention to the infants. 2 were crying weakly. The third was silent lips, pale but breathing. He stripped off his coat and wrapped it around all 3, tucking them against his chest. Then he pulled his knife. The wire resisted. He had to cut carefully, peeling it away from where it had embedded in her wrists. Blood welled fresh and red. She didn't flinch, didn't make a sound. When the last strand fell away, she collapsed forward into his arms. "I've got you," he said quietly. Her eyes opened just barely, dark, unfocused, full of something worse than pain. "My daughters," she whispered. "They're safe. Don't let him." Her voice broke. "Don't let him take them." "No one's taking anyone." He lifted her as carefully as he could. She weighed almost nothing. The cold had stolen everything from her warmth, strength, hope. He laid her across the saddle, then secured the babies in a sling fashioned from his shirt and an old blanket from his pack. The horse shifted nervously. "Easy," Elijah murmured. He mounted behind the woman, holding her upright with one arm, the babies pressed between them. Her head lolled against his shoulder. He could feel how cold she was, even through his shirt. The cabin was 2 miles uphill. He started riding. The cabin. The door stuck in the frame, swollen from moisture and disuse. Elijah kicked it open and carried her inside. The cabin was dark, frigid, untouched since autumn. He laid her on the bed in the corner and unwrapped the babies, checking each one. Breathing. Pulse weak but steady. He built the fire, fast hands moving with muscle memory. Smoke curled up the chimney. Flames caught and spread. He filled a pot with snow and set it to melt, then turned back to the woman. She hadn't moved. Her eyes were closed again, face slack. He peeled the frozen dress away from her skin carefully, slowly. The fabric tore in places. Underneath her body was a map of violence. Bruises layered over older bruises, cuts, burns, marks that told a story he didn't need explained. He wrapped her in every blanket he owned and pulled the bed closer to the fire. Then he turned to the babies. 3 girls. Identical near as he could tell. Small, red-faced, helpless. One had a full head of dark hair. The other 2 were nearly bald. He warmed goat's milk over the fire and fed them with a clean cloth, letting them suck the fabric. It was clumsy, slow work, but they took it. The smallest one, bald with a birthmark on her left cheek, fought the hardest. Greedy. Determined. "You're a scrapper," he murmured. Hours passed. The fire crackled. Outside, snow began to fall again. Nightfall. "Where am I?" Elijah turned from the stove. The woman was awake, propped on one elbow, staring at him with wide, wary eyes. "Safe," he said. "Who are you?" "Elijah Stone." She looked around the cabin, small, spare, clean. Her gaze landed on the babies asleep in a makeshift cradle near the hearth. Her expression cracked. "They're alive." "Yes, ma'am." She tried to sit up, gasped, fell back against the pillows. "Don't move yet," Elijah said. He poured hot broth into a tin cup and brought it to her. "Drink this." She took the cup with shaking hands, sipped, winced, sipped again. "How long?" "6 hours since I found you." "He left me there to die." Elijah said nothing. "My husband." Her voice was flat, hollow. "Joseph Kinsley. He said if God wanted me alive, he'd send someone. If not..." She looked at the babies again. 3 daughters. That's what damned me. 3. "What's your name?" "Maribel." "Maribel," he repeated. "Your daughters need names." She blinked, surprised. I didn't have time. The midwife left. Joseph wouldn't let me hold them. He wrapped them in rags and dragged me out." "Then name them now." Maribel stared at him. Her throat worked. I don't know if they're alive right now," Elijah said quietly. "That's enough." She looked at the cradle, at the 3 tiny faces flushed with warmth, now breathing steady. "Clara," she whispered. "The one with dark hair. Clara." She paused. "Rose, the one with the birthmark. And..." Her voice broke. "Grace, the quiet one." Elijah nodded. He walked to the shelf above the mantel and took down 3 small stones, smooth, round, river-worn. He'd collected them years ago for no reason he could name. He placed one beside each baby. "Clara, Rose, Grace," he said. "They're marked now. They exist." Maribel's eyes filled with tears. "Why are you doing this?" "Because someone should have done it for me." She didn't ask what he meant. Maybe she heard it in his voice, the old wound, the one that never healed. Chad. The first night. Maribel slept fitfully. Elijah stayed awake, tending the fire, feeding the babies when they cried, watching the door. He knew what came next. Men like Joseph Kinsley didn't leave loose ends, didn't let go of property, and that's what she was to him. Property. Same as the horses, the land, the house. Elijah had seen it before. Men who thought their wives owed them sons, who punished barrenness, punished daughters, punished anything that didn't match the picture in their heads. His own father had been that kind of man. Near dawn, Maribel woke again. This time she sat up slow and painful and looked at him across the fire. "You should have left me there." "No. You don't know what you've done. Joseph, he owns half the county. He'll come for me. He'll come for them. Let him. You don't understand. He's not..." She stopped. Started again. "He's not a man you say no to." Elijah met her eyes. "Neither am I." Something shifted in her expression. Fear, yes, but also something else. Hope, maybe. or the ghost of it. "Why?" she asked. "Why would you risk this?" Elijah stoked the fire, watching sparks rise and die. "I had a sister once. She was 16 when our father beat her for talking back. She died 3 days later. I was 12. Too small to stop him. Too scared to try." Maribel's breath caught. "I'm not 12 anymore," Elijah said quietly. "And I'm not scared." Morning. The babies woke with the sun crying, hungry, insistent. Maribel tried to stand, but her legs wouldn't hold her. Elijah brought them to her one by one. She nursed Clara, first tears streaming down her face. Then Rose, then Grace. "I thought I'd never—" She couldn't finish. Elijah turned away, giving her privacy. He stepped outside into the cold, clear morning. The snow had stopped. The world was white and silent. He'd lived alone in these mountains for 8 years. Chosen it. Needed it. The scars on his face burns from a barn fire that had taken his sister. His mother left him half dead, kept people at a distance. That was fine. He preferred distance. But now there were 4 people inside his cabin. 4 people who needed him. 4 people he'd fight hell itself to protect. He heard hoofbeats before he saw the riders, 2 of them coming up the trail fast. Elijah stepped back inside. "Get in the back room. Take the babies. Don't make a sound." Maribel's eyes went wide. "Is it go?" She gathered the infants and disappeared into the small storage room. Elijah shut the door behind her and slid a trunk in front of it. Then he picked up his rifle and walked outside. The first confrontation. The rider stopped 20 yards out. 2 men, both well-dressed, both armed. The one on the left was older, heavyset with a thick beard. The one on the right was younger, clean-shaven, cold-eyed. The older man spoke first. "Elijah Stone." "That's right." "I'm Samuel Kinsley. This here's my son, Joseph." Elijah said nothing. Joseph urged his horse forward. "We're looking for my wife. She ran off yesterday. Took some things that belonged to me. We heard you might have seen her." "Haven't seen anyone." "That's so." Joseph's voice was smooth, controlled. "Funny thing, trail leads right to your door. Lot of trails lead here." Samuel leaned forward in his saddle. "Son, we're not looking for trouble. We just want what's ours. Woman and 3 infants. You help us, there's gold in it for you." "Not interested." Joseph's expression hardened. "Let me be clear. My wife is unstable. Dangerous. She tried to harm those babies. We're taking them into protective custody." Elijah's grip tightened on the rifle. "That's a lie." "You calling me a liar?" "I'm saying the woman I found was tied to a fence post with barbed wire, left to freeze. Babies with her. That's not a woman who ran off. That's a woman who was thrown away." Samuel's face darkened. "You don't know what you're talking about." "I know enough." Joseph dismounted slowly, hand near his pistol. "Step aside, Stone." "No. This isn't your fight." "It is now." For a long moment no one moved. The wind picked up, scattering loose snow across the clearing. Finally Samuel spoke. "We'll be back. With the sheriff. With a warrant. You're harboring stolen property." "She's not property. The law says different." They rode off without another word. Elijah watched until they disappeared into the trees. Then he went back inside. The truth. Maribel was sitting on the floor of the storage room, clutching the baby, shaking. "They're gone," Elijah said. "For now. Tell me everything. Start from the beginning." She took a shaky breath. "I was 17 when my father arranged the marriage. Joseph was 30, rich, respected. I thought I was fortunate." She laughed bitterly. "First year, no child. He was patient. Second year, still nothing. He started testing me, making sure I was trying hard enough." Elijah's jaw tightened. "Third year, I got pregnant. He was overjoyed. Threw a party before the baby was even born. Told everyone it would be a son. Had to be a son. Her voice dropped. When Clara came out first, he went silent. When Rose followed, he left the room. When Grace... She stopped breathing hard. He said I'd cursed him. Said I'd ruined his legacy. The midwife tried to calm him, but he paid her to leave. Then he dragged me outside and... That's enough, Elijah said quietly. You need to know what you're up against. Joseph doesn't lose, ever. His father owns the land office, the bank, half the businesses in town. The sheriff is his cousin. If they want me back, they'll take me. And if they can't take me, they'll have to go through me first. Maribel looked at him. Really looked. At the scars, the hard eyes, the set of his shoulders. Why? She whispered. You don't know me. You don't owe me anything. I know enough. What if they kill you? They can try. She shook her head. I don't understand you. You don't have to. Preparation. The next 3 days passed in tense, watchful silence. Elijah reinforced the cabin, barred the windows, reinforced the door. Set up sight lines from the roof. He moved supplies from the shed into the cellar. Gathered extra ammunition. Checked every trap and snare around the property. Maribel healed slowly. The cuts on her wrists scabbed over. The bruises faded from black to purple to green. She could walk now, though it hurt. She could hold all 3 babies at once. She watched Elijah work with something like wonder. You're preparing for war, she said one evening. I'm preparing for whatever comes. What if I left? What if I took the girls and disappeared? Where would you go? I don't know. Somewhere. Anywhere. Joseph would find you. Men like him always do. Then what's the answer? Elijah looked at her. You make a stand. You stop running. I'm not strong enough. You survived childbirth alone, tied to a post in a snowstorm. You're strong enough. She blinked back tears. I don't even know how to shoot. Then I'll teach you. Dad. The lesson. The next morning, Elijah brought out an old revolver, cleaned, oiled, simple. It's not fancy, he said, but it works. Maribel held it like it might bite her. First rule, Elijah said, if you draw it, you use it. No warnings, no hesitation. I can't. You've never had a reason before. He stood behind her, adjusting her grip, her stance. Look down the barrel. See that tree, aim for the center. She fired. The shot went wide, kicking up snow 10 feet to the left. Again. She fired 6 more times. Missed every time. I'm useless, she said, frustrated. You're learning. He reloaded the gun and handed it back. Again. By the end of the day, she'd hit the tree twice. Better, Elijah said. That night she asked him, have you ever killed anyone? He didn't answer right away, just stared into the fire. Yes, he said finally. How many? Enough to know I'll do it again if I have to. She should have been afraid, should have recoiled. Instead, she just nodded. Good, she said. The bond days became a week. The babies grew stronger, louder, more demanding. Maribel's strength returned. She started cooking simple meals, but warm and filling. She hummed while she worked old songs Elijah half remembered from childhood. One evening, Clara started crying sharp, inconsolable wails. Maribel tried everything. Feeding, rocking, changing. Nothing worked. Here, Elijah said quietly. He took the baby, held her against his chest, and started walking slow circles around the room. Within minutes, Clara quieted. Maribel stared. How did you? She wanted to move. Babies like motion. You're good at this. Had practice. Your sister. Yeah. Maribel watched him for a long moment. You would have been a good father. Elijah said nothing, but something in his expression shifted, softened. Later, after the babies were asleep, Maribel spoke into the quiet. Elijah. Yeah. Thank you for everything, For, her voice caught, for making them matter. He looked at her across the fire. They always mattered. Not to Joseph. Joseph's a fool. She smiled, small, sad, but real. You're a strange man, Elijah Stone. Been called worse. The warning. The next morning a rider came alone, a woman older wrapped in furs. She dismounted and called out, Elijah, it's Hattie Caldwell. Elijah stepped out, rifle in hand, but lowered. Hattie, we need to talk. Inside, Hattie warmed her hands by the fire and nodded to Maribel. You must be Mrs. Kinsley. Just Maribel now. Hattie's expression was grim. Joseph's planning something. He filed a legal complaint, says you stole from him, kidnapped his children. Sheriff's gathering a posse. They'll be here in 3 days, maybe less. Maribel went pale. What can we do? Run, Hattie said. Tonight. I'll guide you to the rail line. From there you can disappear. No, Elijah said. Elijah, they'll hang you for this. Let them try. This isn't... Hattie stopped, looked at Maribel, then back at Elijah. You're willing to die for her. If it comes to that. Hattie shook her head. You're both damn fools. She pulled a bundle from her coat. At least take this. Medicine gold, a letter of introduction to a friend in Montana, just in case. Elijah accepted it. Thank you. After Hattie left, Maribel turned to him. You should let me go. Take the gold and disappear. This isn't your burden. Yes, it is. Why? He looked at her, really looked. At the fear in her eyes, the hope, the steel underneath. Because you're not alone anymore, he said, and neither am I. The storm hit 2 days later, not snow this time, but something worse. Men. Elijah saw them first from the rooftop where he'd been keeping watch since dawn. 7 riders cutting through the tree line, moving slow and deliberate, like wolves circling prey. The sheriff rode point badge glinting even in the gray light. Behind him came Samuel and Joseph Kinsley, then 4 others. Elijah didn't recognize, hired guns probably, men who'd do what needed doing for the right price. He climbed down and found Maribel nursing Grace by the fire. They're here, he said. Her hands tightened around the baby. How many? 7. Dear God. Take the girls to the cellar. There's food, water, blankets. Don't come up no matter what you hear. Elijah. Maribel. He knelt in front of her, voice steady. I need you to trust me. Can you do that? She searched his face, then nodded once. Yes. Good. Now go. She gathered Clara and Rose, balancing all 3 against her chest, and descended into the cellar. Elijah waited until he heard the door latch from inside before sliding the heavy trunk back over the entrance. To anyone searching, it would look like nothing more than storage. Then he picked up his rifle and walked outside. The riders had stopped 50 yards out, horses stamping and snorting in the cold. Sheriff Daniels dismounted first, a big man with a gray beard and tired eyes. Eyes that had seen too much and looked away from most of it. Elijah Stone, the sheriff called. We need to talk. Then talk. Daniels walked forward, hands visible, movements careful. You know why we're here. I know what you think you're here for. Joseph Kinsley has filed a legal complaint. Says you're harboring his wife and children against their will. Says you threatened him with violence. That's a lie. Maybe so. But I got a court order here that says I need to search these premises. Daniels pulled a folded paper from his coat. You can let me do this peaceful, or we can do it hard. Your choice. Elijah glanced past the sheriff to where Joseph sat, his horse face smug and certain. Samuel beside him, hand resting on his pistol. Show me the order, Elijah said. Daniels walked forward and handed it over. Elijah scanned the paper, mostly legal language he barely understood, but the signature at the bottom was clear enough. Judge Harrington, another Kinsley cousin. This says you're looking for stolen property, Elijah said slowly. Woman's not property. Law says different when she's married. Wife belongs to her husband. Children, too. Even when he leaves her to die. That's his word against yours. Then let's ask her. Can't do that, Joseph called out. She's unstable, been that way since the birth, might say anything. Elijah's jaw tightened. You're a coward, Joseph. Watch your mouth, Stone, or what you'll tie me to a post to. Joseph's face went red. He started to dismount, but Samuel grabbed his arm. Easy, boy, Samuel muttered. Then louder to Elijah. This doesn't have to end ugly. Just let the sheriff do his job. If the woman wants to stay with you, she can say so. If the babies are healthy, we'll see that noted. But you can't keep them locked away like prisoners. They're not prisoners. Then prove it. Let us in. Elijah stood there, rifle loose in his hands, calculating. 7 men, most armed. Even if he was fast, and he couldn't take them all. Not without someone getting hurt. And if he started shooting, there'd be no going back. The law would hunt him down, hang him, and Maribel would end up right back where she started. But if he let them in, if they found her, Joseph would take her, would take the babies, would make sure Elijah never saw them again. There was no winning play here, just degrees of losing. I'll get her, Elijah said finally. But only the sheriff comes inside. The rest of you stay put. Samuel frowned. That wasn't the deal. That's the only deal you're getting. Daniels looked back at the others, then nodded. Fine. Everyone else stays mounted. Joseph started to protest, but Samuel silenced him with a look. Elijah turned and walked back into the cabin, Daniels following. Inside, the sheriff removed his hat and glanced around. Nice place. Quiet. Elijah said nothing. He moved to the trunk and pulled it aside, then knocked twice on the cellar door. After a moment, Maribel's voice came up muffled. Elijah. It's safe. Sheriff's here. Just him. The door opened slowly. Maribel emerged, still holding the babies, face pale but composed. She looked at Daniels and something hardened in her expression. Mrs. Kinsley, Daniels said carefully. Your husband's outside. He's worried about you. Is he? Says you ran off. Took the babies. Says he's concerned for your welfare. That's very kind of him. Her voice was flat dead. Did he mention the part where he tied me to a fence and left me to freeze? Daniels shifted uncomfortably. He says you were confused. Hysterical after the birth. Is that what he says? Ma'am, I'm just here to make sure you and the babies are safe, that's all. We're safe here. But you'd be more comfortable at home, wouldn't you? With your husband in a proper house? No. The word hung in the air like a gunshot. Daniels blinked. Ma'am. I won't go back to him. He beat me, Sheriff, for years, because I couldn't give him a son. And when I finally gave birth 3 healthy babies, he called them abominations. Said they'd cursed his line. Then he dragged me out into the snow and left me to die. She stepped forward, eyes blazing. So no, I won't be going home. Daniels looked genuinely uncomfortable now. That's a serious accusation. Look at my wrists. She shifted Grace to one arm and held up her hands. The scars from the barbed wire were still vivid red and angry. Daniels stared at them. His face went gray. Did I do that to myself? Sheriff, did I tie myself to a post and wait for death? Daniels cleared his throat. I need to talk to Joseph. By all means. The sheriff walked outside. Elijah followed, rifle still in hand. Maribel stayed in the doorway, visible but protected. Daniels faced Joseph, expression hard. She's got marks on her, bad ones, wire cuts. She must have hurt herself trying to escape, Joseph said smoothly. I told you she's not in her right mind. She seems pretty clear to me. She's lying. Why would she lie about that? Because she wants my children? Joseph's voice rose cracking. She wants to keep them from me out of spite. Or maybe, Elijah said quietly, she wants to keep them alive. Joseph wheeled on him. You shut your mouth. This is between me and my wife. Was it between you two when you tied her up? Elijah's voice stayed level cold. When you left 3 newborns in the snow. That between you two as well. You don't know anything. I know what I found. Samuel cut in, voice sharp. Enough. Sheriff, you've seen the woman. She's clearly capable of speaking for herself. But the law is clear, those children belong to Joseph. He's their father. And she's their mother, Daniel shot back. A mother who abandoned her home. A mother who was thrown out like trash. That's her story. Where's her proof? Elijah stepped forward. I'm her proof. I found her. I cut her down. I saw what was done. You're not an impartial witness, Samuel said. You're harboring her, probably bedding her too. Maribel's voice cut through like ice. How dare you? Samuel turned to her face hard. You bring shame on this family, girl, running off with another man spreading lies about your husband. It's disgraceful. What's disgraceful? Maribel said, voice shaking with rage. Is what your son did. What you taught him to do. How to treat women like livestock. How to throw them away when they don't serve your purposes. Watch your tongue. Or what? You'll beat me too, tie me up, leave me to die again. She laughed sharp and bitter. I'm done being afraid of you, all of you. For a moment no one spoke. The wind picked up rattling bare branches. Then Joseph drew his pistol. Enough games, he said. Those are my children. I'm taking them. Now. Elijah's rifle came up fast. Put it down. Make me. Joseph, Daniel said urgently. Don't. Stay out of this, Sheriff. Can't do that. You're threatening a man on his own property. A man who stole from me. She's not property. Elijah's voice finally rose hard and commanding. And neither are those babies. You don't own them. You don't deserve them. And you sure as hell aren't taking them. Joseph's hand shook on the pistol. His face was twisted with rage, and something else. Something desperate. They're mine. No, Maribel said quietly. They're mine. I carried them. I birthed them. I nearly died for them. You just wanted sons. And when you didn't get them, you threw us all away. I gave you everything, a house, clothes, food, a name. You gave me nothing but pain. Joseph's finger moved toward the trigger. Elijah's rifle steadied on his chest. Do it, Elijah said softly. Give me a reason. The moment stretched tight as a wire. Then Samuel spoke, voice weary. Joseph, lower the gun. Father, lower it. Now. Joseph stared at Elijah for another long moment, then slowly lowered the pistol. But his eyes promised murder. Daniels exhaled. All right. Here's what's going to happen. Joseph, you're filing for divorce on grounds of abandonment. Maribel, you're counter-filing for cruelty. Judge will hear both sides make a ruling. Until then, the children stay with their mother. That's not, Joseph started. That's how it's going to be, Daniel said firmly. And if you try anything else, anything, I'll arrest you myself. We clear? Samuel grabbed Joseph's arm before he could answer. We're clear. Come on, boy. They mounted and rode off, the hired guns following. But Joseph looked back once, and the promise in his eyes was unmistakable. This wasn't over. When they were gone, Daniels turned to Elijah. You made an enemy today. Had one already. He'll come back. With more men. Maybe at night. Maybe when I'm not around to stop it. I'll be ready. Daniel studied him. You really willing to die for this? If that's what it takes. The sheriff shook his head slowly. You're either the bravest man I've met or the dumbest. Maybe both. Daniels mounted his horse, then paused. For what it's worth, Stone, I believe her. But belief doesn't always matter when money's involved. Watch yourself. Then he rode away too. Maribel was still standing in the doorway, clutching the babies. She was shaking now, adrenaline giving way to fear. Elijah walked to her. It's all right. They're gone. For now. She looked up at him, eyes wet. He's going to kill you, isn't he, Joseph? He won't stop until... Let him try. Why are you doing this? Why are you risking everything? Elijah reached out and gently touched Clara's head. The baby stirred but didn't wake. Because no child should grow up thinking they weren't wanted, that they weren't worth protecting. Is that what happened to you? He didn't answer. Didn't need to. Maribel shifted the babies, then reached out with her free hand and touched his scarred cheek. He flinched, started to pull away, but she held firm. You're a good man, Elijah Stone, she said softly. Better than you think. Something in his chest tightened. We should get inside. Could be they're watching. That night they didn't sleep. Elijah kept watch from the roof while Maribel tended the babies and checked supplies. Every sound made them tense. Every crack of ice. Every distant animal call. Every whisper of wind through the pines. Near dawn, Clara started crying. Then Rose. Then Grace. All three at once, hungry and demanding. Maribel tried to feed them, but her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold them steady. I can't do this. Yes, you can. Elijah climbed down from the roof and took Rose, cradling her while Maribel nursed the other two. You're doing fine. I'm terrified. I know. What if he comes back? What if he takes them while I'm sleeping? What if... Maribel. Elijah's voice was firm but gentle. Look at me. She did. I won't let that happen. I promise you. You can't promise that. I just did. She stared at him, searching his face. Then slowly she nodded. Okay. Okay. Rose finished eating and fell asleep against Elijah's chest. He stood there rocking slightly, watching the sunrise through the window. You're good with her, Maribel said. She's easy. You'd make a good father. Had my chance at that. Lost it. What do you mean? Elijah was quiet for a long time. Then, my sister was pregnant when she died. 16 years old, no husband. Our father found out and... He stopped, swallowed. The beating caused her to lose the baby. Then infection set in. She died 4 days later. Oh God. I was supposed to protect her. Instead, I just watched, too afraid of him to do anything. You were a child. Old enough to know better. Maribel reached across and took his hand. You're protecting us now. That has to count for something. Maybe. They sat like that as the sun rose, 3 babies sleeping between them and the weight of the world pressing down from all sides. The next few days were quiet. Too quiet. Elijah knew it was just the calm before the storm, but Maribel seemed to relax slightly. She started cooking again, real meals, and singing to the babies in the evenings. One afternoon, Elijah came back from checking traps to find her outside, holding Rose and pointing at birds in the trees. Look, sweetheart, she was saying. See the blue one, that's a jay. And there, that's a sparrow. Rose, of course, just drooled. Elijah smiled despite himself. Teaching her ornithology already. Maribel laughed. Got to start somewhere. She looked at him, and her expression softened. Thank you, Elijah, for giving me this. These moments. I never thought I'd... She stopped, eyes filling. I never thought I'd get to be their mother. Not really. You always were. Not to Joseph. To him I was just a failure. A broken thing. You're not broken. I feel broken sometimes. Elijah walked to her and put his hand on her shoulder. Broken things can be mended. Just takes time. And the right person to do the mending. She looked up at him, and something passed between them, something unspoken but understood. Then Grace started crying from inside, and the moment broke. But it stayed with them. That night, after the babies were asleep, Maribel asked him to teach her to shoot again. They went outside, and she practiced by moonlight, the crack of the pistol echoing through the valley. She hit the tree 4 times out of 6. "Better," Elijah said. "I'm learning from the best." "Hardly. You're too modest." "I'm practical." He reloaded the gun and handed it back. Again. She fired. Hit the tree dead center. "There," Elijah said, and something like pride crept into his voice. "That's the one that saves your life." Maribel looked at the gun in her hand, then at him. "I hope I never have to use it." "Me too. But if you do, I won't hesitate." "Good." They walked back inside together. The cabin was warm now, lived in, full of small signs of life. Drying clothes, baby blankets. Clara's first laugh still echoing in memory. Maribel paused at the door. "Elijah." "Yeah." "If something happens to me, if Joseph finds a way, promise me you'll keep them. The girls. Promise me they'll have a home." "Nothing's going to happen to you." "Promise me anyway." He looked at her for a long moment. Then, "I promise." She smiled, small and sad. "Thank you." That night Elijah dreamed of fire, of his sister screaming, of his father's fists and his own cowardice. He woke gasping, reaching for the rifle before he remembered where he was. Maribel was sitting by the fire nursing Grace. She looked over at him. "Bad dreams. Always. Want to talk about it?" "Not much to tell. Just the past coming back." "The past has a way of doing that." "You too. Every night." She adjusted Grace, who had fallen asleep mid-feeding. "I dream that I'm back at the fence, that the wire's cutting deeper and deeper and I can't scream because the cold's frozen my throat. And Joseph's just standing there watching, smiling. He's not here now. I know, but he will be, won't he?" Elijah didn't lie to her. "Probably. And when he comes, we'll be ready." She nodded slowly. "I believe you." "Good." The fire crackled between them. Outside, an owl called. Grace stirred, but didn't wake. "Elijah," Maribel said after a while. "Yeah. I'm glad it was you. That found us. If it had been anyone else..." "Don't think about anyone else." "But what if..." "Maribel." He looked at her, really looked. "There's no one else. It was me. And I'm not going anywhere." She smiled, then real and warm and something in Elijah's chest, something that had been frozen for 8 years, started to thaw. The thaw didn't last. 3 days later, just before dawn, the dog started barking. Elijah was up instantly, rifle in hand. He looked out the window and saw nothing but darkness and trees. Then he smelled it. Smoke. "Maribel." He ran to the cellar door. "Get the babies now." She was already moving, scooping up Clara and Rose while Grace screamed in her cradle. Elijah grabbed Grace and thrust her into Maribel's arms. "Out the back. Into the woods. Don't stop until you reach Hattie's place." "What about you?" "I'll hold them off." "Elijah. Go." She hesitated one more second, then ran. Elijah turned back to the front of the cabin just as the door exploded inward. 4 men rushed in. Not Joseph, not Samuel, but hired guns. Professional. Fast. The first one swung a club at Elijah's head. He ducked, brought the rifle up, fired. The man went down hard. The second lunged with a knife. Elijah sidestepped, slammed the rifle butt into the man's temple. He dropped. The third and fourth came at him together. One got past his guard blade, slicing across Elijah's ribs. Pain flared hot and immediate. He roared, spun, and shot the man point blank. The fourth man grabbed the rifle, wrenched it away. They went down together, grappling, punching, clawing. The man was bigger, heavier. He got on top, hands closing around Elijah's throat. Elijah's vision started to darken. He fumbled at his belt, found his knife, and drove it up under the man's ribs. The hands around his throat went slack. Elijah shoved the body off and staggered to his feet, bleeding, gasping. The cabin was full of smoke now. The back wall was burning, flames crawling up the logs. He stumbled outside and saw two more riders circling around toward the tree line where Maribel had run. "No," he rasped. He grabbed his rifle, checked the load. 2 shots left. He ran. The riders were closing on Maribel. She was 50 yards into the trees, stumbling over roots, clutching the babies. They were gaining fast. Elijah dropped to one knee, aimed, and fired. The first rider fell from his horse. The second wheeled around, saw Elijah, and drew his pistol. Elijah fired again. Click. Empty. The rider smiled and raised his gun. Then a shot rang out from the trees. The rider jerked eyes wide and toppled sideways. Maribel stepped out from behind a pine pistol smoking in her hand. Her face was white, her hands shaking, but her eyes were clear. "I didn't hesitate," she said. Elijah walked to her, took the gun gently from her hands. "No, you didn't." She looked past him at the burning cabin. "It's gone. The cabin's gone. We're not. Where do we go now?" Elijah looked at the babies, all 3 awake, now crying but alive. Then at Maribel, standing there bloody and fierce and unbroken. "Wherever we want," he said. And for the first time in 8 years, he meant it. They walked through the pre-dawn darkness, moving fast but careful, babies pressed close to Maribel's chest, while Elijah kept his rifle ready and his eyes scanning the trees. Behind them, orange light flickered through the pines, his cabin burning down to ash and memory. Grace had stopped crying, first, worn out from terror. Rose followed her little fist, clutching Maribel's collar. Only Clara kept fussing, soft whimpers that seemed impossibly loud in the forest silence. "How far to Hattie's?" Maribel whispered. 3 miles. Maybe 4. Elijah glanced back. "Can you make it?" "I don't have a choice." "That's not what I asked." She looked at him, jaw set. "I can make it." They pushed on. The wound in Elijah's side had stopped bleeding, but every step pulled at it, sending fresh pain through his ribs. He ignored it. Pain meant he was alive. Meant he could still fight if it came to that. After an hour, Maribel stumbled. Elijah caught her before she fell. "I'm fine," she said quickly. "You're exhausted." "I said I'm fine." But she wasn't. He could see it in the way her legs shook, the way her breathing came too fast. She'd given birth 2 weeks ago, nearly died, and now she was running for her life through mountain forest with 3 infants. "We'll rest," he said. "We can't. They might be following." 5 minutes. You're no good to those babies if you collapse." She wanted to argue. He saw it in her face, but her body was already giving out. She nodded and sank down against a fallen log, adjusting the babies in her arms. Elijah stood guard, listening. Wind through branches, distant owl call. Nothing human. Not yet. "I killed him," Maribel said suddenly. Elijah looked at her. "The rider. I shot him and he died and I—" Her voice cracked. "I should feel something. Guilt, horror, anything. But I just feel alive." "Yes." She looked up at him, eyes bright with unshed tears. "Does that make me a monster?" "Makes you a survivor. I took a life. A life that was about to take yours. That's not murder. That's justice. The law might see it different." "The law," Elijah said quietly, "left you tied to a fence post. The law came to take your children away. The law serves men like Joseph. So to hell with the law." She stared at him. Then slowly she smiled. "You're a dangerous man, Elijah Stone." Good. That's what keeps us breathing. They started walking again. The sky was lightening now, dawn bleeding through the trees in shades of gray and gold. Birds began their morning songs, the forest waking up around them indifferent to their struggle. "Tell me about Hattie," Maribel said. "Can we trust her? She's been trading with me for 5 years. Never asked questions, never spread gossip. If anyone in this territory has a backbone, it's her." "Will she help us?" "She already did once, came to warn us. That counts for something." "But Joseph could find us there." "He could find us anywhere. At least at Hattie's we'll have walls and supplies." Maribel shifted Clara to her other arm. "What happens after?" "We can't run forever." "We don't run. We make a stand." Against Joseph, against his father, against every man with a gun they can hire. If that's what it takes. You're talking about war. I'm talking about survival. Elijah stopped walking and turned to face her. Joseph won't stop. You know that. He'll chase us to the end of the earth before he lets you go. Not because he loves you, not because he wants those babies, but because he can't stand losing. Then what do? We take the fight to him. Maribel's eyes widened. That's insane. Maybe, but it's the only play we got left. They walked in silence after that, each lost in their own thoughts. The miles passed slowly, painfully. Maribel's breathing grew more labored. Clara started crying again, then Rose joined in. Only Grace stayed quiet, watching the world with dark, serious eyes. Finally, just as the sun broke fully above the mountains, Hattie's place came into view. It wasn't much a squat log building with a sagging porch and a stable that had seen better days. But smoke rose from the chimney, and chickens pecked in the yard, and it looked like safety. Elijah knocked. The door opened a crack. Hattie's weathered face appeared, shotgun visible in her hands. Then she saw them, and her expression shifted. "Lord have mercy!" She threw the door wide. "Get inside, quick!" They stumbled in. Hattie locked the door behind them and pulled the curtains closed. "What happened?" "They burned the cabin," Elijah said. "Came at dawn. 4 men, maybe more. Joseph, his hired guns. He's done pretending this is legal." Hattie looked at Maribel, who was swaying on her feet. "Sit down before you fall down, girl." She guided Maribel to a chair near the fire. "Let me see those babies." Maribel reluctantly handed over Clara. Hattie examined her quickly, efficiently. "She's fine, scared but healthy." She checked Rose next, then Grace. "All 3 are good. You did well keeping them safe." "Elijah kept us safe." Hattie glanced at him. "You're bleeding." "It'll keep." "Like hell it will. Sit." Elijah sat. Hattie fetched water and clean cloth and started working on the wound in his side. He hissed through his teeth but didn't pull away. "Knife?" Hattie asked. "Yeah." "Could have been worse. Could have been a bullet." She worked in silence for a minute, cleaning the cut. "You two have stirred up a hell of a hornet's nest." "Wasn't the plan." Plans rarely survive first contact with the Kinsleys. She started wrapping bandages. "Samuel came by yesterday. Offered me gold to tell him where you were." Maribel tensed. "Did you?" "I told him to get off my property before I shot him for trespassing." Hattie tied off the bandage and stepped back. "I don't take Kinsley money. Never have. Never will." "Thank you," Maribel whispered. "Don't thank me yet. This isn't over. Joseph's got half the county looking for you. Put out a reward. $500 for information leading to your capture." "Dead or alive?" Elijah asked. "Didn't specify, but knowing Joseph, he's not particular." Maribel looked down at the babies now sleeping peacefully in a makeshift cradle by the fire. "We can't stay here. We'll put you in danger." "I'm already in danger just for knowing you." Hattie poured coffee and handed cups to both of them. "But that's my choice to make. And I choose to help." "Why?" Maribel asked. "You don't even know me." Hattie sat down across from her. "I know enough." Know you're running from a man who left you to die. Know you're fighting to keep your children. Know you're doing it with more courage than most men I've met." She paused. "And I know what it's like to be powerless. To have men decide your fate for you. If I can stop that from happening to someone else, I will." "There's a story there," Elijah said quietly. "There is. But it's not one I tell." Hattie stood. "You two need rest. Real rest. I'll keep watch. Upstairs, second door on the right. Bed's clean and there's a cradle for the babies." Maribel started to protest, but exhaustion won. She gathered the babies and headed upstairs. Elijah moved to follow, but Hattie stopped him. "A word first." He waited. "What's your plan here, Elijah? Really? Because running isn't working. Hiding isn't working. Eventually, Joseph's going to find you, and when he does, it'll be with enough men to make sure you don't walk away." "I know. So I make sure he doesn't walk away either." Hattie studied him. "You planning to kill him? If it comes to that, it'll come to that. Joseph won't stop until one of you is dead. And if you kill him, the law will hang you for murder. Samuel will make sure of it. Maybe. But Maribel and the babies will be free. And orphaned. Better orphaned than trapped with a monster." Hattie shook her head slowly. "You've got it bad for her, don't you?" Elijah didn't answer. "I'm not judging. Hell, I think it's the first decent thing that's happened to that poor girl in years. But you need to think this through. There might be another way." "I'm listening." "Tomorrow circuit judge comes through, Judge Morrison. He's fair honest, not in the Kinsley's pocket. If we can get to him first, present Maribel's case. Joseph will never let it get that far. Not if he knows about it. But if we move fast quiet, we might have a chance." Hattie leaned forward. "It's a long shot, Elijah. But it's better than throwing your life away." Elijah was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Where's the judge staying?" "Murphy's Hotel. Main Street. He arrives on the noon stage." "That's in the middle of town. Middle of Kinsley territory." "I know, but it's also public. Witnesses everywhere. Joseph can't just gun you down in front of half the county." "Can't he?" "Not without consequences. Even Samuel knows that. They've got power, but they're not invincible. People are starting to talk about Maribel, about what really happened. You give them a reason to turn against the Kinsleys, and they might just take it." Elijah considered this. It was risky, reckless even. Walking into the heart of enemy territory with everything to lose. But Hattie was right about one thing: running wasn't working. And he'd be damned if he'd spend the rest of his life looking over his shoulder, waiting for Joseph to make his move. "All right," he said finally. "We talked to the judge." "Good. Now get some sleep. You look like hell." Upstairs, Elijah found Maribel already asleep, curled around the babies on the bed. She'd left space for him, and after a moment's hesitation, he lay down beside her. She stirred. "Elijah, I'm here." "Did you mean it? What you said in the forest about taking the fight to Joseph?" "Yes." She was quiet. Then, "Good. Because I'm tired of being afraid." "You don't seem afraid to me." "I am. Terrified every moment. But I'm also angry. So angry I can barely breathe sometimes. And I want him to pay. For everything he did. For everything he took from me." "He will." "Promise. I promise." She reached back and found his hand lacing her fingers through his. "Don't die for me, Elijah. Please. These girls need a father. A real one. Someone who'll teach them to be strong. To fight back. To never let any man treat them the way Joseph treated me. Maribel. Promise me." He squeezed her hand. "I'll try." "That's not good enough. It's all I got." She rolled over to face him, eyes bright in the dim light. "Then I'll just have to make sure you keep that promise." She leaned forward and kissed him soft, quick, surprising. He froze. "Sorry," she whispered. I shouldn't have. He kissed her back. Longer this time, meaning it. When they pulled apart, she was crying. Why are you crying? Because I didn't think I'd ever feel this again. Safe. Wanted. Like I matter. You do matter. I know. You showed me that. She touched his scarred cheek again. You saved me, Elijah. In every way a person can be saved. You saved yourself. I just happened to be there. No. You chose to be there. That's different. She settled back against him, head on his shoulder. Don't let me sleep too long. We should leave before... But she was already asleep, exhausted beyond words. Elijah lay there, listening to her breathe, feeling the weight of her trust and his own fear tangled together. He'd made promises he wasn't sure he could keep. Taken on fights he wasn't sure he could win. But looking at her, at the 3 tiny lives sleeping beside her, he knew he'd try anyway. Because some things were worth fighting for, worth dying for if it came to that. And Maribel Kinsley, fierce, broken, unbreakable, was one of them. Morning came too soon. Elijah woke to find Hattie shaking his shoulder. We got trouble. He was up instantly. What kind? The kind with badges and guns. Sheriff Daniels is downstairs. Says he needs to talk to you. Elijah checked his rifle loaded ready. Alone. For now. But there's 3 deputies waiting outside. Joseph sent them. Probably. But Daniels seems, I don't know, conflicted. Like maybe he's starting to grow a conscience. Maribel was awake now, clutching Clara. Should we run? Nowhere to run to, Elijah said. I'll handle this. Elijah? Stay here. Keep the door locked. If shooting starts, take the girls and go out the back window. Don't stop until you reach the rail line. I'm not leaving you. You will if I tell you to. Her jaw tightened, but she nodded. Downstairs, Sheriff Daniels stood by the door, hat in hand, looking older and more tired than Elijah remembered. Elijah. Sheriff. I hear you had some trouble last night. You could say that. 4 men dead, your cabin burned. That's a lot of trouble. Wasn't my choice. Never is, seems like. Daniels moved further into the room. Joseph's claiming you murdered his hired men. Says you attacked them without provocation. That's a lie. I figured, but I got to take you in anyway. Questions need answering. Process needs following. Process. Elijah's voice was flat. The same process that gave Joseph a court order to kidnap his wife. That process. I don't like it any more than you do, but I got a job to do. Then do it. Arrest me. But leave Maribel alone. Leave those babies alone. Can't do that. Joseph's filing new charges. Says she's a danger to the children. Says she needs to be evaluated. Committed, maybe. He's lying. I know he is, but my knowing doesn't change the law. Elijah's hand moved toward his rifle. Daniels saw it and raised his hand. Don't, please. I'm not here to hurt anyone. Then why are you here? Daniels glanced at the door, then back at Elijah. When he spoke, his voice was low. Because I wanted to warn you. Judge Morrison arrives today. Joseph knows. He's planning something. I don't know what, but it's big. He's called in men from 3 counties. Whatever he's planning, it happens today. Why tell me this? Because I'm tired. Tired of looking away. Tired of letting powerful men do whatever they want while good people suffer. Daniels put his hat back on. I can't help you openly. I got a family to think about. But I can give you this: get to the judge first. Tell your story. Make it public before Joseph can stop you. He'll kill us before we get within 100 yards of that hotel. Maybe. Or maybe he'll hesitate. Public spectacle tends to make even the Kinsleys nervous. Either way, it's the only shot you got. Daniels moved toward the door. I'll tell my deputies I didn't find you here. That'll buy you a few hours. Use them wisely. Sheriff, Elijah said. Thank you. Daniels looked back. Don't thank me. Just live. And make sure that woman gets her justice. She's earned it." Then he was gone. Hattie came down the stairs. "You trust him? Don't have much choice." "Fair point." She pulled a heavy coat from a hook. "I'm coming with you." "No." "Yes. You'll need a witness. Someone respectable who can vouch for Maribel's character." "That's me." "It's too dangerous." "Everything's dangerous. Least this way I'm useful." She looked at him hard. "Besides, you think I'm letting you walk into that town alone? You'd be dead before you hit Main Street." Maribel appeared at the top of the stairs, babies bundled in her arms. "She's right. And I'm coming too." "Maribel. My story. My fight. I won't hide anymore." Elijah wanted to argue, wanted to lock them all in this cabin and face Joseph alone. But he saw the steel in Maribel's eyes, the set of her jaw, and he knew argument was pointless. "All right," he said. "We do this together, but we do it smart. Hattie, you got a wagon?" "In the barn." "Good. We'll ride in like we're just coming to trade. Nothing suspicious. Nothing that draws attention until we're inside that hotel. And then we tell the truth. And we pray it's enough." They loaded the wagon quickly. Hattie drove Elijah beside her with his rifle across his lap. Maribel sat in the back with the babies hidden under canvas and blankets. The ride into town took an hour. Every minute felt like a noose tightening. Elijah kept scanning the trees expecting ambush, but the trail stayed quiet. Too quiet. "Something's wrong," he muttered. "Noticed that too," Hattie said. "Haven't seen a soul since we left." "Could be they're all in town, waiting." "Could be." The town appeared ahead, a sprawl of wooden buildings along a muddy main street. Unusually, people crowded the walkways. More than normal for midday. Way more. "Looks like a gathering," Hattie said. "Or a trap." They rolled down Main Street slowly. People stared, whispered. Some pointed at the wagon. Word was spreading fast. Murphy's Hotel stood at the far end of the street, 3 stories, freshly painted, the nicest building in town. A stagecoach sat out front, horses still hitched. "Judge is here," Elijah said. "So is Joseph." Hattie pointed. Across the street, standing in front of the bank, Joseph Kinsley watched them approach. Beside him stood his father, and behind them at least a dozen armed men. Elijah's grip tightened on the rifle. "Keep driving," he said. "Don't stop." Hattie snapped the reins. The wagon lurched forward. Joseph stepped into the street, hand raised. "That's far enough." Hattie pulled to a stop. Elijah stood rifle ready. "Get out of the way, Joseph." "Can't do that. You're harboring a fugitive, interfering with the law. I'm making a citizen's arrest." "The law," Elijah said loudly, making sure everyone could hear, "is about to hear what you really did. How you left your wife to die. How you tried to murder me. How you burned my home to cover your crimes." A murmur ran through the crowd. People were listening now. Joseph's face darkened. "You're a liar and a thief." "Then let the judge decide." "There's nothing to decide. That woman is mine. Those children are mine. And I'm taking them back." Maribel stood up in the wagon, throwing off the canvas. The crowd gasped. She looked like hell, dirty, exhausted, haunted. But she stood tall. "I'm not yours," she said clearly. "I never was. And my daughters will never be." Joseph's hand moved toward his pistol. 20 guns cocked in response. Elijah's, Hattie's, and to everyone's surprise, several men in the crowd. "Don't," someone called out. Elijah recognized him, Tom Murphy, the hotel owner. "Not in front of witnesses, Joseph. Not like this." "Stay out of this, Tom." "Can't do that. This is my street, my town too, and I want to hear what the lady has to say." Other voices joined in. "Let her speak. Hear her out. Give her a chance." Joseph looked around, realizing too late that the crowd wasn't with him. His power was slipping. "Father," he said urgently. Samuel Kinsley stepped forward, voice booming. This woman is a liar and an adulteress. She abandoned her husband and stole his children. Under the law, a new voice interrupted. She has the right to petition for protection. Everyone turned. A man stood on the hotel steps, tall, silver-haired, wearing a black coat and judge's robes. Judge Morrison. "I've been listening," Morrison said, descending the steps. "And from what I can gather, there are serious accusations on both sides. This requires a formal hearing." "Your Honor," Samuel started, "this isn't—" "It's exactly my jurisdiction, Mr. Kinsley, and we'll settle it right now, in public, where everyone can see justice done." Morrison looked at Maribel. "Ma'am, do you wish to testify?" "I do." "Then approach." Maribel climbed down from the wagon babies in her arms. Elijah moved to follow, but Morrison held up a hand. "Just the woman, for now." Maribel walked forward alone. The crowd parted for her, silent and watchful. She reached the steps and turned to face them all. "My name is Maribel Kinsley," she began, voice shaking but clear. "And I need you to know what happened to me." Then she told them everything. Every word fell like a stone into still water rippling outward through the crowd. Maribel's voice never wavered, though tears streamed down her face as she spoke. "I was 17 when my father told me I was to marry Joseph Kinsley. I didn't know him, didn't love him, but father said it was a good match, that I'd be taken care of. So I said yes, because that's what daughters did." She shifted Clara in her arms, the baby's dark eyes watching her mother's face. "The first year Joseph was patient, kind even. But there was always this expectation, this weight. He needed a son. His father demanded it. Their whole family legacy depended on it, and when I didn't get pregnant right away, things changed." Joseph moved to interrupt, but Judge Morrison raised his hand sharply. "Let her finish." "He started testing me, making sure I was—" Maribel's voice caught. "Making sure I was doing everything right. When I finally did conceive, he was overjoyed. Threw parties, bought gifts, made plans. But they were all plans for a son. He never once considered that it might be a daughter." The crowd was silent now, hanging on every word. "When Clara was born first, I saw his face change, saw the joy die. But I hoped that he'd come around, that he'd love her anyway. Then Rose came, and Joseph left the room. Just walked out while I was still in labor. The midwife tried to calm him, but he wouldn't listen. And when Grace was born—" Her voice broke completely. She had to stop breathing hard before she could continue. "He said I'd cursed him, said 3 daughters meant God was punishing him for something. He blamed me, said my womb was poisoned. Then he—" She pulled back her sleeves, showing the scarred wrists to the crowd. "He dragged me outside. It was snowing, freezing. My babies were minutes old, and he tied me to a fence post with barbed wire and left me there to die." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Several women brought their hands to their mouths. "He said, if God wanted me to live, someone would find me. If not, then it was his will." Maribel looked directly at Joseph. "You left me there. You left your newborn daughters in the snow. You walked away and didn't look back." "She's lying," Joseph shouted. "She was hysterical. I was trying to protect—" "Protect what?" Maribel's voice rose fierce and strong. "Protect your pride, your precious family name. You tried to kill me, Joseph. Kill me and our daughters. Because we weren't what you wanted. That's not I never. Then explain these." She thrust her wrists forward again. "Explain how I got these scars. Explain how Elijah found me, tied to that post with my babies dying in the snow." Joseph's mouth worked, but no sound came out. Judge Morrison stepped forward. "Mr. Kinsley, I'd like to hear your explanation." Samuel pushed past his son. "Your Honor, this woman is clearly disturbed. The birth affected her mind. She's imagining things, making false accusations." "I'm not imagining these scars," Maribel said coldly. "I'm not imagining the cold, the wire cutting into my skin, The sound of my babies crying while I froze. I'm not imagining any of it." "She hurt herself," Samuel insisted. "In her madness." "Did I?" Maribel looked at the crowd. "Did I tie myself to a post? Cut my own wrists to the bone? Lay my newborn daughters in the snow to freeze? Does that sound like something a mother would do? Postpartum hysteria?" Samuel started. "Is a convenient excuse for men who hurt women," Hattie cut in, stepping forward. "I've known Maribel for years, knew her before Joseph. She was sweet, gentle, kind. Then she married him, and every time I saw her after that, there were new bruises, new excuses, new reasons she couldn't come to town." "This isn't your concern, Hattie," Samuel warned. "The hell it isn't. You Kinsleys think you own this town, own the people in it. Think you can do whatever you want, and the rest of us will just look away. Well, I'm done looking away." "Me too," Tom Murphy said, stepping forward. "I remember when Mrs. Kinsley came to town 3 months back. Had a black eye and a split lip. Joseph said she'd fallen, but I seen enough bar fights to know what a man's fist looks like against a woman's face." More voices rose from the crowd. A woman called out, "I saw her once with her arm in a sling. Joseph said she'd tripped on the stairs." Another man, "I heard screaming from their house one night. Went to check, but Joseph sent me away. Said it was a private matter." The murmurs grew louder, angrier. People were remembering now. All the signs they'd ignored, all the times they'd looked away. Joseph's face had gone white. "You're all this? Is she's turned you against me? She's a witch, a liar." "Enough." Judge Morrison's voice cracked like a whip. "Mr. Kinsley, I've heard quite enough, but there's more to this story, I think." He turned to Elijah. "You're the man who found her." "Yes, sir." "Approach and testify." Elijah handed his rifle to Hattie and walked forward. He stopped beside Maribel, close enough that their shoulders nearly touched. "State your name for the record." "Elijah Stone." "Tell me what happened the day you found Mrs. Kinsley." Elijah told it plain and simple. No embellishment, no drama. Just the facts. The sound in the forest. The woman tied to the post. The babies in the snow. The cuts, the bruises, the way she'd barely been breathing. "And what did you do?" Morrison asked. "I cut her down, took her to my cabin, kept her and the babies alive." "Did she ask you to hide her from her husband?" "She didn't have to. She was half dead from what he'd done. That was answer enough. And when Mr. Kinsley came looking for her, I refused to give her up." "Why?" Elijah met the judge's eyes. "Because she wasn't property to be returned. She was a woman who'd been nearly murdered. And those babies were innocent lives. I wasn't going to send them back to a man who'd already tried to kill them once." "That's kidnapping," Samuel said hotly. He admitted it. "Is it kidnapping to save someone's life?" Morrison asked. "Or is it mercy? The law, Morrison said quietly, is meant to serve justice, not protect abusers." He turned back to Elijah. "Mr. Stone, you said Mr. Kinsley tried to kill you. Not Joseph himself, but he hired men. They came to my cabin 4 nights ago, tried to burn it down with us inside, tried to gun us down when we ran. Can anyone corroborate this?" "I can," Hattie said. "They showed up at my place just before dawn, covered in soot and blood. Elijah had been stabbed. Maribel had just shot a man who was trying to kill them." The crowd erupted. People shouting, arguing, demanding answers. Judge Morrison had to bang his gavel against the hotel steps 3 times before they quieted. "This is more than a domestic dispute," Morrison said. "This is attempted murder, multiple counts. Mr. Kinsley, I'm ordering a full investigation. In the meantime—" "You can't do this," Samuel interrupted. "We have rights. You have the right to remain silent while I finish speaking." Morrison's voice was ice. "Mrs. Kinsley, do you wish to file for divorce on grounds of cruelty and attempted murder?" "I do." "And do you wish to retain sole custody of your children?" "Yes, Your Honor." "Then it's granted, temporarily pending investigation. Mr. Kinsley, you are hereby ordered to stay at least 100 yards from Mrs. Kinsley and her children. Any violation will result in immediate arrest." Joseph exploded. "You can't do this. Those are my daughters, my property. Your daughters are human beings, Mr. Kinsley, and your wife is no longer your property. This court recognizes her right to leave a marriage that endangered her life. This is Father do something." Samuel's face was purple with rage. "Judge Morrison, I'll have your position for this. I'll make sure you never work in this territory again." "You're welcome to try." Morrison turned to Sheriff Daniels. "Sheriff, I'm placing Mrs. Kinsley and her children under protective custody. Mr. Stone as well, given the attempts on his life. Find them safe lodging and post guards." Daniels nodded slowly. "Yes, Your Honor. And if Mr. Kinsley or any of his associates attempt to approach them, you have my authority to arrest on sight. Is that clear?" "Crystal clear." Joseph looked wildly around at the crowd, at his father, at his hired guns. "This isn't over. You hear me? This isn't—" He reached for his pistol. Three things happened at once. Elijah lunged forward, pushing Maribel behind him. Daniels drew his own weapon, and a shot rang out. But it didn't come from Joseph's gun. It came from somewhere in the crowd, a sharp crack that sent Joseph spinning backward, hand clutching his shoulder. "Nobody move!" Daniels roared. "Drop your weapons, all of you!" The hired guns hesitated. Samuel grabbed his son, who was bleeding heavily, now gasping. "Who fired?" Morrison demanded. "Who shot him?" Silence. Then slowly a man pushed through the crowd. He was young, maybe 20, wearing a farmer's clothes. His hand shook as he held up the rifle. "I did," he said. I couldn't let him draw. Not on an unarmed woman." "You know what you've done," Samuel snarled. "You just signed your death warrant, boy." "Maybe, but at least I'll die knowing I did the right thing." The young man looked at Maribel. "My sister married a man like Joseph. He beat her till she couldn't walk, then beat her some more. She died when I was 15. Nobody helped her. Nobody stopped him. I swore I'd never let that happen again if I could prevent it." Morrison took the rifle gently. "What's your name, son?" "Daniel Pritchard." "Mr. Pritchard, you just shot a man in front of witnesses. That's a serious crime." "I know, sir. I'm ready to face it." "However," Morrison continued, "given that Mr. Kinsley was drawing on unarmed civilians, including an infant, I'm ruling this a justifiable intervention. You're free to go." "You can't," Samuel started. "I can and I will. Sheriff, get Joseph to a doctor, then arrest him for attempted murder of his wife, his children, and Mr. Stone. We'll hold a full trial once he's recovered." Samuel looked like he might have a stroke. "This is an outrage. An absolute— It's justice, Mr. Kinsley. Maybe the first real justice this town has seen in years." Morrison turned to the crowd. "Anyone else have testimony to offer? Now's the time." For a moment, no one moved. Then people started stepping forward. A seamstress who'd mended Maribel's torn dresses, always suspicious about how they'd been damaged. A shopkeeper who'd heard Joseph shouting at his wife in the street. A ranch hand who'd been fired for questioning how Joseph treated his horses. If he'd beat an animal like that, what was he doing to his wife? The testimonies piled up, one after another. Years of whispered suspicions, ignored warning signs, times when good people had looked away because the Kinsleys were powerful, and crossing them was dangerous. But they weren't looking away anymore. Finally, when the last testimony had been given, Judge Morrison addressed the crowd. "I want to thank you all for your courage today. Speaking truth to power is never easy, but it's necessary. It's how we build a society worth living in." He turned to Maribel. "Mrs. Kinsley, I'm granting you an emergency divorce on grounds of extreme cruelty. You are no longer legally bound to Joseph Kinsley. Your daughters are solely in your custody, and I'm issuing a permanent restraining order. Joseph is never to come within sight of you or your children again. If he does, he'll be arrested and imprisoned." Maribel's knees buckled. Elijah caught her before she fell. "It's over," he whispered. "You're free." She looked up at him, tears streaming. I'm free. You're free. She laughed then, a sound of pure relief and joy and disbelief. The babies, sensing their mother's emotion, started making noise too. Clara giggled. Rose cooed. Grace just watched with those serious eyes. The crowd applauded. Some women were crying. Men clapped Elijah on the back as he helped Maribel toward the wagon. But Sheriff Daniels stopped them. Not yet. Judge's orders, you need protective custody until we're sure the Kinsleys aren't going to retaliate. Where? Elijah asked. The hotel, top floor. I'll post guards. Daniels looked at them seriously. Don't leave. Don't trust anyone except me and Hattie. Samuel's not done yet. He'll be looking for revenge. Let him look, Maribel said. Her voice was different now, stronger, harder. I'm done being afraid of that family. They spent the next 3 days at Murphy's hotel. Tom Murphy gave them the best rooms free of charge. Consider it my apology for not speaking up sooner, he said. Hattie came and went, bringing supplies, spreading word of what had happened. The story rippled through the county like wildfire. The great Kinsley family brought down by a woman and a scarred mountain man. People loved it, the powerful humbled, the abused vindicated. But Elijah stayed vigilant. He knew Samuel wouldn't accept this, knew the old man was somewhere planning, scheming, looking for an angle. The attack came on the third night. Elijah heard it first, the soft scrape of boots on wood. He was up instantly, rifle in hand, moving to the door. Maribel woke, saw his expression, and gathered the babies without a word. How many? She whispered. Don't know, at least 3. The guards, either paid off or dead. She pulled out the pistol he'd given her, hands steady now. What do? We survive. The door exploded inward. 2 men rushed in, guns drawn. Elijah fired, dropped the first one. The second got a shot off. The bullet whined past Elijah's ear and punched into the wall behind him. Maribel fired. The man went down. But more were coming up the stairs. Heavy footsteps, shouting voices. Window, Elijah said. Now. Maribel ran to the window. It opened onto a narrow ledge 3 stories up. Below, the muddy street looked very far away. I can't, the babies? You can. Elijah shoved a pillowcase at her. Put them in this. I'll lower you down. She did it, moving fast, wrapping all 3 babies tight. Elijah tied a rope to the bed frame and helped her out the window. She climbed down, awkward, but determined, the babies bundled against her chest. More men burst into the room. Elijah turned and fired again, buying time. Someone shot back. The bullet caught him in the leg, and he went down hard. The pain was white-hot, blinding, but he kept shooting. Below, Maribel reached the ground. She looked up and saw him fall, saw the blood. Elijah. Run, he shouted. Get them safe. I'm not leaving you. Run. She hesitated 1 more second. Then she ran, babies clutched tight, disappearing into the darkness between buildings. The men in the room converged on Elijah. One kicked the rifle away. Another pointed a gun at his head. Should have stayed out of Kinsley business, the man said. Then the window shattered. Sheriff Daniels came through it like an avenging angel, shotgun blazing. 2 men went down immediately. The third turned to fire, but Hattie appeared in the doorway behind him and shot him in the back. Where's Maribel? Daniels demanded. Safe? Elijah gasped. She got out. Can you walk? Don't know. Hattie and Daniels hauled him up between them. His leg screamed protest, but held. They made it down the stairs out into the street. Behind them, the hotel was chaos, shouting gunshots, smoke. They found Maribel 2 blocks away, hiding in an alley with the babies. When she saw Elijah bleeding, she went pale. How bad? I'll live. You better. She looked at Daniels. What now? Now we end this. Daniels's face was hard. Samuel crossed a line tonight, attacked a hotel full of innocent people, tried to kill a woman and her children. Even his friends won't protect him from this. Where is he? The bank, holed up with his remaining men. But we're going to dig him out." By dawn, half the town had gathered outside the bank. Men with rifles, women with shotguns, even children holding rocks. They'd had enough. Enough of the Kinsleys, enough of the fear, enough of looking away while powerful men did whatever they wanted. Daniels called out, "Samuel Kinsley, come out peacefully or we're coming in." Silence from inside. "You got 5 minutes, then we burn you out." More silence. Then finally the door opened. Samuel emerged, hands raised, face gray with defeat. Behind him, 3 of his men followed. "It's over, Samuel," Daniels said. "Your son's in jail awaiting trial. Your hired guns are dead or arrested. You got nothing left. I have money, power, connections. You have nothing." Judge Morrison said, stepping forward. "I've already contacted the territorial governor, informed him of your crimes. You'll be tried, convicted, and imprisoned. Your assets will be seized to compensate your victims. The Kinsley name is finished in this territory." Samuel looked around at the crowd, at all the faces watching him with cold satisfaction. People he'd controlled for years, finally free. "Damn you all," he whispered. "No," Maribel said, stepping forward with her daughters. "Damn you. For what you taught your son. For the culture of cruelty you built. For every woman who suffered because you made men think they owned us." Samuel had no answer. They took him away in chains. 3 weeks later, Elijah stood in the ruins of his cabin surveying what could be salvaged. Not much. Some tools. A few unburned logs. The stones he'd placed by the baby's cradle somehow intact despite the fire. He heard footsteps behind him and turned. Maribel approached, carrying Grace, while Clara and Rose toddled beside her. They were walking now, stumbling but determined. "I thought I'd find you here," she said. "Needed to see it. Say goodbye, I guess." "Or hello." She looked around. "We could rebuild. Make it bigger. Make it ours." "Ours," she smiled. "I'm not going back to town, Elijah. Too many memories there. Too many ghosts. But here," she gestured at the mountains, the trees, the vast empty sky. "Here I can breathe. Here I can be free. Here my daughters can grow up strong. It's hard living up here, lonely. Not if you're with me." He stared at her. "Maribel, I love you." She said it simply, clearly. "I don't know when it happened exactly. Maybe when you first said my daughters mattered. Maybe when you stood between me and Joseph's gun. Maybe when you nearly died protecting us. But it happened, and I'm not taking it back. I'm not good at this. At being what someone needs. You're exactly what we need. You're what we've always needed, someone who sees us as human beings worth protecting, worth loving, worth choosing every single day." Elijah looked at the babies. Clara waved at him, her little hand opening and closing. Rose tried to climb over a fallen log. Grace just watched him with those knowing eyes. "I can't promise I won't fail you sometimes," he said quietly. "I don't need promises. I need you. Just you. Scars and all." He crossed to her carefully, like approaching something precious and fragile. He touched her face, traced the line of her jaw. "I love you too," he said. "Reckon I have since the moment I found you. You were so fierce even dying, so determined to protect your daughters. I'd never seen anything like it." She leaned into his touch. "So we rebuild together. Together." "Good." She kissed him, soft and sweet and full of promise. "Because these girls need a father. And I need a husband. A real one who'll love me right. I'll try my damnedest. That's all I ask." They stood there in the ashes of the old cabin, holding each other and 3 babies who'd nearly died, but were thriving now, strong and healthy and loved. Behind them, the mountains rose eternal and indifferent. Ahead, the future stretched uncertain but possible. And between them, something had been built that no fire could burn, no cruel man could break, no winter could freeze. Something that looked a lot like home. The work began the next morning just after dawn, when the light turned the mountains gold, and the air still held the night's chill. Elijah started by clearing the burned timbers, sorting what could be used from what had to be thrown away. His leg still ached from the bullet wound, but he worked through it, muscle memory taking over where strength faltered. Maribel worked beside him. Grace strapped to her back, while Clara and Rose played in a cleared patch of dirt nearby. She didn't complain about the hard labor, didn't ask for breaks, just worked steady and determined, like she'd been doing this all her life. "You don't have to do this," Elijah said at one point. "I can handle the heavy work." "I know I don't have to. I want to." She straightened, wiping sweat from her forehead. "This is my home too. I'm going to build it." "Never met a woman like you." "Good. I'd hate to be ordinary." He smiled at that. Actually smiled something that still felt foreign on his face after so many years of solitude. By midday, Hattie arrived with a wagon full of supplies, lumber nails, tools, food. Behind her came Tom Murphy and Daniel Pritchard, the young man who'd shot Joseph. "Heard you were rebuilding," Tom said, climbing down. "Figured you could use help." "Can't pay you," Elijah said. "Didn't ask for payment. Asked if you needed help." Daniel was already unloading timber. "Besides, this town owes you both. Least we can do is help build you a proper home." More people came throughout the day. Men from town ranchers from outlying properties, women bringing food and water. Even Sheriff Daniels showed up after his shift, hammer in hand. "Kinsley's are gone," he said as he worked. "Samuel's awaiting trial in the territorial prison. Joseph's been moved there too, once he recovered enough." Both looking at long sentences. "Good," Maribel said quietly. "Better than good. It's justice." Daniels hammered another nail. "And because of what you two did, 3 other women came forward. Said their husbands had been hurting them, said they were afraid to speak up before, but seeing you fight back, it gave them courage." Maribel stopped working, tears in her eyes. 3 women. 3 so far, could be more. You changed something here. Made people realize they don't have to accept cruelty as normal. I didn't do it alone. No, but you did it first. That matters. They worked until sunset, and by then the frame of the new cabin was up bigger than the old one, with room for a real bedroom, a larger hearth, and a loft for the girls when they got older. As people packed up to leave, Tom pulled Elijah aside. "You're going to need income. Can't live on mountain air alone. I'll trap, hunt. Same as before. Or you could do something different, something that uses what you're good at." "What's that?" "Protection. There's a lot of folks around here who need someone watching their backs. Abused women mostly, but also homesteaders getting pushed around by bigger ranchers. You made a name for yourself, Elijah. People trust you. They'd pay for that trust. I'm not a hired gun. No, you're better. You're a man who fights for what's right, not for whoever pays most. That's worth something." Elijah thought about it. "I'd need Maribel's agreement. Can't leave her alone up here. So don't. Bring her with you. Bring the girls. Make it a family business. People see her testimony, they'll talk to her. Trust her. Between the 2 of you, you could help a lot of folks." After Tom left, Elijah mentioned it to Maribel. She was nursing Rose by the fire, Clara asleep beside her. Grace watching the flames with fascination. "What do you think?" he asked. "I think it's exactly what we should do. We didn't survive just to hide up here. We survived to make sure others don't have to go through what we did. It'll be dangerous sometimes. Everything's dangerous. At least this way we're dangerous together." He sat beside her close enough that their shoulders touched. "You sure about this? About us? About building a life here?" "More sure than I've ever been about anything." She shifted Rose to her other arm. "You gave me back my life, Elijah. Gave my daughters a future. Now I want to do the same for others. Want to show them that monsters can be beaten, that abusers don't get to win, that there's hope even in the darkest places." That's a lot to carry. Then it's good we're carrying it together. The cabin took 3 weeks to finish. They worked from dawn to dusk, and slowly the structure took shape: solid walls, a good roof, windows with real glass that Hattie brought from town. Inside, they built a large hearth, shelves for supplies, a table big enough for 6 people. The loft had 3 small beds, one for each girl, with carved headboards that Elijah made during the evenings. On each headboard, he carved their names: Clara, Rose, Grace, and underneath each name, a single word: worthy. Maribel cried when she saw them. "They'll never forget," she whispered. "They'll grow up knowing they matter, that they're valued, that they're loved." "That's the idea. You're going to be a wonderful father." "Already am one, seems like." She looked at him. "Do you want them to call you that, Father, Papa?" "They can call me whatever they want, long as they know I'll always be here for them." "They know. I know." The day they moved in, Hattie brought a gift, a quilt she'd sewn herself with patches showing mountains and trees, and 3 small figures holding hands. "For your family," she said, "so you never forget where you came from and what you survived." Maribel hugged her tight. "Thank you. For everything. For believing me, for helping us, for being brave when it mattered most." Someone had to be. Glad it was me. That night, their first in the new cabin, Elijah couldn't sleep. He lay in bed listening to Maribel breathe beside him, listening to the babies murmur in their sleep upstairs, listening to the wind move through the pines. "You're thinking too loud," Maribel murmured. "Sorry." "What's on your mind?" "Just this. All of this. A month ago I was alone. Had been alone for 8 years. Chose it even. And now you have a family." "Yeah, and it terrifies me." She rolled over to face him. "Why?" "Because I could lose you. All of you. Something could happen. Someone could come and I'd—" He stopped, throat tight. "I barely survived losing my sister. If I lost you, lost those girls, I don't think I'd survive it twice." "Then we'll make sure you don't have to." She took his hand. "Listen to me. We're not going anywhere. We're here, we're safe, and we're together. That's what matters." "But—" "No buts. Life is uncertain, Elijah. Always has been, always will be. We can spend our time worrying about what might happen, or we can spend it being grateful for what we have right now. And right now, I have you, I have my daughters, I have a home, and I have hope. That's more than I ever dreamed possible." He pulled her close, holding her like she might disappear. "I love you. Don't think I'll ever stop saying it now that I've started." "Good. I never want you to stop." They fell asleep like that, wrapped together, and for the first time in years, Elijah didn't dream of fire. He dreamed of sunlight and laughter and 3 little girls running wild through mountain meadows. The first job came 2 weeks later. A woman rode up to the cabin, nervous and bruised, leading a horse with 2 children. Her name was Sarah, and her husband had been beating her for years. "I heard what you did," she said to Maribel. "How you stood up to Joseph Kinsley. How you got away. I was wondering if you could help me do the same." Maribel brought her inside, gave her tea, let her tell her story, while the children played with Clara, Rose, and Grace. Elijah listened, jaw tight, recognizing the pattern, the excuses, the fear, the desperate hope that things would change. When Sarah finished, Maribel spoke gently. "You can't go back. You know that, right? Once you leave him, he'll come after you." "I know, but I can't stay either. Last time he—" She touched her ribs gingerly. "He broke 2 of them. Said next time he'd break my neck." "Then we'll make sure there's no next time." Elijah stood. "Where's your husband now?" "Town. Drinking probably. He does that most nights." "Good. That gives us time. Maribel, pack supplies for Sarah and the kids. Enough for 2 weeks. I'll take them to Hattie's. She can hide them until we figure out something permanent." "What about you?" Sarah asked. "He'll come looking. He'll be angry." "Let him be angry. He wants to take that anger out on someone. He can try taking it out on me." They moved fast. Within an hour, Sarah and her children were on their way to Hattie's Hidden in a covered wagon. Elijah and Maribel returned to the cabin and waited. Sarah's husband arrived just after dark, drunk and furious. He pounded on the door, shouting obscenities. "Open up! I know you got my wife in there." Elijah opened the door, rifle in hand. "She's not here." "You're lying. That bitch came here, I know she did. People in town said, she was here, she's not anymore, and she's not going back to you." The man tried to push past. Elijah stopped him with the rifle barrel against his chest. "Back off, now. You can't do this. She's my wife. Those are my kids. I got rights. You got nothing. You beat her, broke her ribs, threatened to kill her. That's not a husband. That's a criminal. This is between me and her." "No, it's between you and me now." Elijah's voice went cold. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave. Tonight. Get on your horse and ride out of this territory. Because if you don't, I'm going to make sure Sheriff Daniels knows what you did, and he'll arrest you, and you'll spend the next 10 years breaking rocks in a prison mine. You can't prove anything. Your wife's got broken ribs and bruises. Your kids got marks on them too. That's all the proof we need." The man's face twisted. "I'll kill you for this." "You can try." Elijah stepped forward. "But here's the thing. I've already killed men better than you, harder than you, meaner than you, and I'm still standing. So ask yourself, do you really want to test me?" The man stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly his bravado crumbled. He backed away, muttering threats, but they were empty now. "If I see you again," Elijah called after him. "If I hear you've hurt anyone else, I won't give you a warning next time. I'll just act. We clear?" The man rode off without answering. Inside, Maribel was comforting the girls who'd woken at the shouting. "Is he gone?" "Yeah." "Will he come back?" "Not if he's got any sense." Elijah set the rifle down. "One down. How many more you think there are out there?" "Too many." She stood carrying Grace. "But we'll help them. One at a time. For as long as it takes." "Could take years." "Then we've got work to do." They helped 17 women that first year. 17 women who found the courage to leave, to fight back, to choose survival over suffering. Some went to family. Some started new lives in other territories. A few stayed nearby, building small homesteads with Elijah's help, learning to shoot with Maribel's teaching. Word spread. The mountain man and the escaped wife who fought monsters. People started calling them when trouble came, when someone needed protecting, when justice seemed impossible. They didn't win every time. Some women went back to their abusers. Some men were too powerful, too connected, too willing to kill. But they won enough, helped enough, saved enough lives to matter. The girls grew. Clara walked first, then ran, then climbed everything in sight. Rose learned to sing before she could talk properly, filling the cabin with wordless melodies. Grace stayed quiet and watchful, but when she finally spoke her first word, it was, "Papa." Looking right at Elijah. He cried. Couldn't help it. Just picked her up and held her, while Maribel laughed and wiped her own tears. "She knows," Maribel said. They all know who their father really is. On their first anniversary, 1 year since Elijah found her tied to that fence post, they rode back to the spot. The post was still there, weathered and rotting now. "Should we burn it?" Maribel asked. "No. Let it stand. Let it remind us what we survived." She touched the wood gently. "I was so scared that day, so sure I was going to die, that my babies were going to die. And then I heard your voice." She looked at him. "You said, 'You're coming with me,' like it was decided, like there was no other option, like I mattered enough to save. You did matter. You do matter. I know that now. But I didn't then. Joseph had beaten it out of me, that sense of worth. You gave it back. You always had it. I just reminded you." They stood there together, holding hands, while the girls played in the snow nearby. The same snow that had nearly killed them was now just a playground, harmless and beautiful. "We should go home," Maribel said finally. "Yeah, we should." Home. The word still felt strange and wonderful. For 8 years, Elijah had lived in survival mode, existing, but not living, going through motions without purpose. Now he had purpose. Had love. Had 3 daughters who called him Papa, and a wife who looked at him like he'd hung the moon. That winter was hard food, scarce temperatures brutal, the girls sick with fever more than once. But they survived it together, huddled around the fire, telling stories, singing songs, making it through one day at a time. Spring came eventually, as it always did. The snow melted, flowers bloomed, and life returned to the mountains. On a warm April morning, Judge Morrison rode up to the cabin. He looked older, more tired, but satisfied. "Thought you'd want to know," he said. "Joseph died in prison. Infection from an old wound. Samuel's still alive but broken. Won't make it another year, the doctors say." Maribel's face was unreadable. "I should feel something. Relief, maybe, or satisfaction. But I just feel empty." "That's because you already moved past them," Morrison said. "They don't have power over you anymore. Haven't for a long time." "No, I suppose they haven't." Morrison pulled out papers. "Also brought these. Final divorce decree. Your marriage is officially dissolved. You're free to remarry if you choose." Maribel looked at Elijah. "What do you think? Should we make it official?" "Thought we already did." "That was just words. I'm talking about legal binding forever." "Pretty sure I already signed up for forever the day I carried you off that mountain." "Is that a yes?" "That's a hell yes." Morrison married them right there in front of the cabin with Hattie and the girls as witnesses. It was quick, simple, perfect. No fancy dress, no flowers, no guests. Just 2 people who'd survived hell choosing to build heaven together. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," Morrison said. "Though honestly, I think you've been married in every way that counts for about a year now." Elijah kissed Maribel and the girls cheered, and somewhere in the distance, a hawk cried out, wild and free and unafraid. The years passed. Clara grew tall and fearless, learning to track and hunt alongside Elijah. Rose developed a voice that could charm birds from trees and men into honesty. Grace stayed quiet, but became the fiercest fighter of them all, defending anyone weaker with ruthless efficiency. They became legends in their own right, the 3 daughters of the scarred man and the escaped wife. People spoke of them with respect and a little fear, which was exactly right. More children came 2 sons who Elijah taught to be gentle, to respect women, to use strength for protection, not domination. The cabin expanded again, then again, becoming almost a compound. A place where the hunted could hide, where the broken could heal, where justice lived when the law failed. Maribel never lost her fire. At 40, she was still fierce, still fighting, still refusing to let anyone tell her she was less than she was. Her daughters watched and learned, and they taught their own children, and the cycle continued. Elijah's leg never fully healed. It ached in cold weather, made him limp on bad days. The scars on his face faded, but never disappeared. But he didn't mind. They were proof he'd survived. Proof he'd fought for something worth fighting for. On their 20th anniversary, Maribel asked him, "Do you ever regret it? Saving me that day. Taking on all this responsibility." He looked around at their family. 5 children, 3 grandchildren so far, and a house full of laughter and life and love. "Only thing I regret," he said, "is not finding you sooner." She smiled. "Liar." "It's true. Think of all the years we could have had. We have them now. That's what matters." "Yeah, it is." They sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the mountains gold and red and purple. Somewhere inside, children were laughing. Somewhere in town, a woman was gathering courage to leave. Somewhere in the territory, justice was being served because 2 people had refused to give up. "We did good," Maribel said softly. "We did." Think it'll last after we're gone. It'll last. Because we didn't just save ourselves. We taught others how to save themselves. That's the kind of thing that echoes forward. Changes how people think, how they act, what they're willing to accept. You've become quite the philosopher in your old age. Learned from the best. She leaned against him, and they watched the sun sink below the mountains, and somewhere a child called for Papa and Mama, and they smiled because that sound, that simple, beautiful sound, meant they'd won. Not against Joseph, not against Samuel, not against any single villain. They'd won against the idea that women were property, against the belief that power meant the right to hurt, against the notion that survival required silence. They'd won by refusing to be silent, by fighting back, by building something better from the ashes of something terrible. And that victory, that stubborn, beautiful, hard-won victory, would outlive them both, echoing through generations of daughters who'd never accept cruelty as normal, never believed they were worth less than men, never stopped fighting for the right to be free. The barbed wire that had cut Maribel's wrists 20 years ago was gone, now rusted away to nothing. But the scars remained faint silver lines she wore with pride. They were proof. Proof she'd survived. Proof she'd fought back. Proof that even in the coldest winter, even when death seemed certain, even when every door was closed, there was still hope. And hope, it turned out, was the most dangerous thing of all.